My name is John Philbrick, and I build wetland swimming pools. Now, first question is, what is a wetland swimming pool? Now, these are very much the swimming pools for the future. A lot of you might know them not under the name wetland pools, but they've got various other names. People talk about natural swimming pools. People talk about eco pools. And it's a swimming pool where the water is cleaned using a wetland. There are no chemicals. The water is clean, crystal clear, and healthy. In different forms, these pools have been around since the 1980s. But the reality is that to most people, they're still a complete mystery. And what I'm hoping to do today is to try and explain how they work, and why they're really beneficial things. But before I do that, I want to give some sort of a broad context to swimming pools, a sense of how they impact on the broader environment, by looking mostly at what happens here in Johannesburg. Now, Johannesburg, I don't know if people know this, is the largest city in the world that is not on a major body of water. We don't have any lakes, we don't have any major rivers, there's no coastline. And possibly as a result of this, and also because of our fantastic climate, Johannesburg has an awful lot of swimming pools. I've done a calculation, and it appears that there are about 100,000 of them in Johannesburg. Now, I've put together, and that's a body of water that's 2.4 square kilometers. This is the equivalent area to the Thames River as it runs through London. So in a sense, these swimming pools are Johannesburg's major body of water. Johannesburg, as we know, is also a very water-stressed city. And so this 2.4 square kilometer of water would be a fantastic resource for the city. But there's a problem. It's not a fantastic resource. And the main reason is that nearly all of those swimming pools are polluted. And then that lost water, that 60 million liters a month of lost water, is replaced by precious tap water. Why do I say these pools are all polluted? Well, most of them are like this. They're what I call chemical swimming pools. And they use primarily chlorine to keep the water absolutely sterile. Chlorine is a massively reactive element when in its pure form, and when it's dissolved in swimming pool water, it reacts with absolutely anything organic in the water, thereby doing what it's supposed to do, which is it kills microorganisms, it kills bacteria, and it kills algae. Unfortunately, it also reacts on us when we swim because we're also organic, and so you get the red eyes, the itchy skin, the dry skin. The other big problem with chlorine, of course, is that it evaporates. And I think we all know the smell of chlorine. It's the smell of summer, the smell of a chlorine swimming pool. So to examine this, or to look at the airborne chlorine, question, I want to look at two studies that have examined airborne chlorine, looking particularly at people swimming in indoor swimming pools. Now, we stress the indoor part. An indoor pool is where you've got a concentrated atmosphere of evaporated chlorine gas. The first study was published in 2006 in the Journal of Occupational Environmental Medicine, and it showed that people swimming in an indoor swimming pool environment, people who were in the indoor environment a day for 1 hour a day, whether they were swimming or not, had the equivalent lung damage to heavy smokers. They also found that that same group of people then had a much increased susceptibility to asthma. The second study, was released as a report a few months ago, and the study was done at the Center of Research in Environmental Epidemiology at the Institute Hospital at Del Mar in Barcelona. And it found that swimming in a swimming pool causes, and I have to quote this, small-scale DNA degradation as a result of carcinogens being formed between the reactions between our body chemistry and the chlorine. And they state that these are link factors to cancer. They stress that everyone mustn't suddenly, please don't all stop swimming, because there are great health benefits from swimming, from exercising. But what they've done is they've said that their sample size was very small, and they've instituted a whole series of further studies to look into this. So, we all agree, chlorine is a bit of an issue. But it's not only that, unfortunately, because algicides are also added to nearly all of these pools. Now, the algicide bottles, if you look at them, have these hectic poison warning labels on them. And often they have absolutely no description of the contents in these packages. So what we do is we take these that we buy and we throw them in our pool, and then we throw in our children. It's kind of counterintuitive. And then remember, we then backwash 60 million liters of this back into our stormwater system, back into the river system. So we have these algicidal poisons that we're actually entering into the natural environment, and we are putting it there. So, this wetland pool, what is it and how does it work? A wetland swimming pool is a swimming pool with a very large planted organic filter, which is the wetland. There's a pump which is on 24 hours a day, circulating all the water through the system about 5 times a day. How big is the wetland? The rule of thumb is that the wetland is about the same area as the pool. How does the wetland work? Obvious question. And I find that the easiest way to try and explain how a wetland works is to see it really as a combination of 4 more commonly known technologies. The first of these is straight water filtration. Now, a wetland pool employs a very large gravel filter to trap any particles in the water, very like a conventional swimming pool filter. But unlike a swimming pool filter, we're talking about a very, very large filter. We talk in terms of cubic meters of gravel into the pools. The average swimming pool uses about 10 to 12 cubic meters of filtration volume. As a result of this, water's flowing very easily through the system, and there's no need for high-pressure pumps. We're talking about flow, not pressure here. And so as a result, we can use massively efficient pumps. So for example, when you look at a conventional swimming pool, you're dealing normally with about a 750-watt pump. We're running swimming pools on 150-watt pumps. We've even got some pools running on 60-watt pumps. This is the equivalent pumping electricity use as an incandescent light bulb. The other big advantage with the pumps that we use is that they're submersible pumps. So as a result, they don't make any noise, which is a big plus. The second technology is biological filtration. Now, this was particularly developed for fish farms, and I think most people are most likely to know it through koi ponds. Now, a koi pond, like a wetland pool, is an aerated, oxygen-rich environment, and in the filters are oxygen-breathing bacteria and protozoa, and they live clinging to any surface that they can find. And then the water is pumped through and past them. And as they cling there, they ingest any organic molecules that pass by them. And then they break them down biologically, and they release the simpler organics back into the water. And that way they derive energy to live. In most koi ponds, you end up with the surface area being the surface area of little bits of molded plastic, very much like these. You can see the plastic's been molded in such a way as to give it as much surface area as possible. Now, it's with this whole question of surface area that the wetland pool then gets very clever. And this is then also where we introduce our next technology. The next technology is hydroponic planting. Now, hydroponics is the planting of plants, directly in water without soil. We use wetland plants, which are very happy to grow in water without soil, and we plant them directly in the gravel filter that I mentioned earlier. This holds the plant in position and allows the roots to grow and spread. Now, as the roots grow and they spread, they increase massively in surface area, and it's the root surface area that we then use as the filtration surface in the wetland pool. It's on the roots of the plants that the organic microorganisms and bacteria all cling to do their filtration work. There's another big advantage to having these plants in the pool, and that is that they absorb the broken down organic molecules and salts, and to them, they consider them as plant nutrients. They absorb them, and then the question is, how do you then get these organics out of the pool and these salts out of the pool? Well, it's really simple. What you do is once a year, you cut back the plants and you physically remove them from the swimming pool. The last technology I want to talk about briefly is something that we borrow from fish tanks. Now, in fish tanks, you have oxygenating plants, which are plants that grow entirely submerged in the water. We don't use them for the reason that, one of the reasons they use them in fish tanks, which is they're called oxygenating plants because as they photosynthesize, they release a small amount of oxygen into the water. We don't use them for that reason. We use them because they compete directly with algae in any shallow open water spaces. They compete for the same nutrients, the same minerals, and the same light. And so in time, as the pool matures, so they outcompete the algae completely. So that, in a sense, is a quick technical how it works on a wetland pool. But the fantastic thing about wetland pool is it doesn't stop there because you get some amazing spin-offs. Firstly, because it's a closed system and the water's passing through the filter again and again and again, every time it passes through the filter, it's stripped of salts and it's stripped of nutrients. And eventually the water gets clearer and cleaner, and you end up with clean, pure water. Now, here in Johannesburg, as you probably all know, our tap water is very hard because of the high mineral and salt content. The swimming pool water is very soft water because it's got no minerals and no salts in it, and so it's really fantastically gentle and soft on your skin. Water has been tested from some of our pools, and those particular pools on those particular days were found to have a better drinking water quality than the tap water. And my own daughter, she much prefers drinking from the swimming pool than from the tap because the water tastes a lot better. The other spin-off is that the fresh water attracts animal life, it attracts bird life, it attracts insect life. And you find an ecosystem developing. Now, to illustrate how this can benefit you, I want to look at the example of mosquitoes. Because one of the first questions I always get from people is, so are there mosquitoes in a wetland pool? The mosquito larvae can live in a wetland pool, but they don't survive. And they don't survive because of the presence of predators in the pool and in the wetland, such as these damselflies. Their larvae will eat any mosquito larvae. Damselflies, dragonflies, particularly good at this. So you do not get mosquitoes. But it goes even further than that, because I found the presence of a wetland pool in your garden will actually reduce the amount of mosquitoes in that garden. And that's because the ecosystem has layers of predation. You get dragonflies, damselflies, you get birds, you get bats, you get frogs. And the slow-flying mosquito really doesn't stand a chance in that environment, so you actually end up with less mosquitoes in your garden. You will most likely get frogs. If you don't like them, they're easy to catch and remove from the system. And then you can take them to somebody else's wetland pool down the road, or you can put them back in a dam. But most people, I find, absolutely love their frogs. And the reason for this is because of the night choruses from the frogs. You know, here in Johannesburg, where crime is a big issue for everybody, the frogs are fantastic burglar alarms. Because what happens if anybody moves near your pool at night, they all suddenly shut up. So it's a sort of negative burglar alarm. But on a more serious note, the presence of frogs is one of the key indicators or markers of the health of an ecosystem. And their presence is an indication of the freshness of the water and the health of the system. One of the other big problems with frogs is that they are fast becoming rarer and rarer as a result primarily of habitat destruction. And that habitat destruction is caused by urbanization. Now here with wetland pools, we're creating new habitats for the frogs within that urban environment. So, in conclusion, what are the advantages of having a wetland pool? They are cheaper to run because there are no chemicals. They are cheaper to run because the pumps are more efficient. We say that it looks like it's about a 7-year payback period that you get for converting your pool from a chemical pool. There's no pump noise. The wetland pools are much less work than a conventional pool, mainly because you haven't got your chemistry set out all the time and you're not constantly adding chemicals. You do have to cut back the plants once a year, usually not in the first year, but after then, the second year or third year, you have to go for it. But then that's a gardening exercise. It's something that you do in the rest of your garden, and when you do the rest of the garden, you do the pool. It's really not too tricky. You don't get any allergies or reactions to horrible chemicals. The water is soft and gentle on your skin. There's no backwashing of algicides to the rivers and the streams. You do get more evaporation than with a conventional pool, but because you're not backwashing, on average, you use significantly less water than a conventional swimming pool. Then on top of the basic conclusions, there's also the bonus features that you get as a result of having a wetland pool. You have a new landscape part of your garden, which is, I usually landscape with indigenous wetland plants. And it's pretty much maintenance-free, and not only that, it doesn't need watering, you just top up the pool. The plants attract wildlife to your garden, and you can start to truly talk about your garden ecosystem. You get, here in winter, we have a very dry climate, and in winter you literally get queues of birds coming to your pool for a bath and for a drink every day. You get the chorus of frogs at night in summer. You get what I call the waterfall effect. And this is because it's a calm environment. There's the sound of water, there's the moisture of air, there's a bit of moisture in the air, there's the presence of negative ions from the aeration. You get the birds, the dragonflies, the plants. It's really an experiential thing, but it's definitely something that you get from a wetland pool. You never have to put out water for your dog ever again. And in an emergency, you have a large body of water that you can use in your household. I want to illustrate this by showing you my friend Henna Frankenfeld and his daughter Anna. Henna's the photographer that took some of these great photographs. Last year, there was a major problem in the whole eastern part of our city where for 2 weeks there was no municipal water. And most people were running backwards and forwards with bottles of water trying to survive. What Henna did is he took a submersible pump and he dropped it in his swimming pool. He had a switch in his kitchen, and with a flick of that switch, he had fresh water on demand. Thanks.